Okay, so we're going to kind of get into graphing quadratic inequalities today. So instead of like an equation only has one or two or three answers or solutions to it, quadratic inequalities have multiple answers. It's a range of answers that work for that function. Okay, so here are the steps at the top. Set one side of the inequality equal to 0. Factor. So again, can't factor. You can't do these types of problems either. Factor, find the zeros. Okay, sketch the parabola using the zeros and the concavity. And then determine the solution set using interval notation. Okay, so first step would be to set everything equal to 0. Well, everything is on one side in here, so we can write it as x squared minus 2x minus 3 equals 0. We're going to just take out that inequality sign for right now. Okay, step 2 would be to factor this thing. So we need two numbers that multiply to negative 3 and add to negative 2. Very good. Okay, so we have x minus 3, x plus 1. I can go straight to my factors, right, because that a value is 1 here. So I don't have to do any kind of factor by grouping situation. Questions there? Okay, so let's go ahead and solve for x on both of those. So you should get two x values, and then check with your group and make sure you got the same ones. Okay, so you should have gotten x to be equal to 3 and negative 1. Are we okay solving it? Yes? Okay. Then it says in step 3, sketch the parabola using the zeros and the concavity. So I'm going to go to my graph and I'm going to plot on the x-axis 3 and negative 1 as my zeros or my x-intercepts. Okay there? Okay, does this thing face up or down? Up, because it's positive out in the front, so I don't really care exactly in these problems where my points are. I just want to graph it either facing up or down, okay, correctly, and going through those zeros. Questions to that point? Okay, here's where the problem gets a little bit different, and you really kind of have to pay attention to what's happening. I'm going to go back to that original problem. I'm going to rewrite it because I don't really like that the function is on the right side. But make sure you flip the sign, okay, when you rewrite it so that you can read it. Thanks. Left to right. Here. No. Okay. So all I did was kind of flip it so that I can read it left to right. So what this question's asking is, where is this function greater than or equal to 0? That's what the sign is. Where is the function greater than or equal to 0? Okay, do you think greater than or equal to 0 is above the x-axis or below the x-axis? Above. Okay, so I'm going to highlight, use your other color, the part that is above the x-axis. Okay, now I have to write what those solutions mean. Where is this happening? Okay, so I need to describe, just like your intervals of increase and decrease, I need to describe the x values where this is happening. So I'm going to look for my x values from here to here. I want to describe these. So I'm going to start at negative infinity, and I'm going to climb up to where? Where does it stop? Negative 1. Good. Now I need to kind of pay attention. Did it say greater than 0 or greater than or equal to 0? Greater than or equal. So I need to have a bracket on here because I need to say this negative 1 is where it's equal to 0. And I want to include that value because it's at greater than or equal to 0. Now there's another interval because it skips here. Where does it start again? So 3. Do I want to include 3? Yes. To infinity. Okay, so I described this interval and this interval because that's where the graph is above the x-axis. And that's what the problem was asking. Where is it greater than or equal to 0? Where is it above the x-axis? Questions? Yes, Courtney.
What's with the U in the center?
The U just means and. It's just like a mathy term or way to write and. You don't have to worry too much about that one. Good question. Anything else? Okay, let's try another one together. So again, I kind of like to rewrite this problem so that it's on, the right side, or it's on the left side, the x. So I'm just going to flip it. I need to get everything on the same side first. So I'm going to subtract the 4. So I have x squared minus 4 is less than 0. Okay, so now this is kind of my main problem I'm looking at. I need to factor this thing. Okay, so you can set it equal to 0 so it looks nicer. And then I need to factor it. What kind of special problem is this? Difference of 2 squares. Very good. Difference of 2 squares. Okay, so I need 2 factors. What times itself gives you x squared? X. Then 1 is plus and 1 is minus. What times itself gives you 4? 2. So x minus 2x plus 2. So then I solve and I get my x's to be at negative 2 and at 2. Doesn't matter what order you have them in. Okay, and I'm going to graph this thing. So it goes at negative 2 and at 2. Is it concave up or down? Okay, up. So I trace. Any questions up to that point, just graphing it. Factor and graph it. Okay, now I need to look back at my original problem here, which is right here, and say I need to know where the function is less than 0. Where is the function less than 0? Okay, so above or below? Below, so I'm going to highlight the part of the function that's less than 0. Underneath the x-axis, less than 0. And then I need to describe this interval. Okay, so I go up to the x-axis, I need to describe these values. It's between which 2 values? Negative 2 and 2. But I want to write it with parentheses because I don't want to include the negative 2 or the 2 because it just says strictly less than 0, not less than or equal to. Okay, so since it's strictly less, I want to start from after negative 2 to before 2 and not include those values. Do you have any questions on that? Okay. Flip it over. Let's try one more together, then I'll have you guys try that last one. Okay. So again, I like to rewrite it so that it's on the correct side. Make sure you flip the sign when you rewrite it. Okay, everything's on the correct side for me now, so I'm going to factor it. It factors into what? Multiplies to negative 2 and adds to negative 1. There's only 2 things that multiply to 2. Yeah. I think you want to be opposite because you want to add the negative 1. So let's make it negative 2 and 1 because we want to add to negative 1, not positive 1. Okay, so now I'm going to get 2 and negative 1 as my actual solutions once I factored it. And I'm going to plot those points. So if this was not an inequality, like if this just said equal in the original problem, then you'd be done. Okay, but because it's an inequality, I need to find a range of numbers that work for this. It's not just one or two numbers. So I'm going to plot -1 and 2. Is this concave up or down? Up. So I'm going to graph it. That's kind of the easier part. Then I have to look back at the problem and really analyze what I'm trying to find. Where is the function what to 0? Where is the function less than 0? Read left to right. So where's the function less than 0? So I'm going to highlight where it's less than 0. Which means it's under the x-axis. Then I need to describe this interval where this is happening. So in between what two numbers is it less than 0? -1 and 2. Then I can decide if I need brackets or parentheses. So go back to the original problem. It's strictly less than 0, not less than or equal to. So I need parentheses here. Oops. Okay, seems like we are getting tripped up on the signs and everything else is fine. So you have to know your greater than and less than signs. Sometimes I guess we get a little bit confused with that, but if you're reading left to right, it's where is the function less than or equal to 0. That the part that's like open is always going to point to the greater part. So if it's pointing towards the function, it means less than or equal to 0, not greater than. It would be the other way for greater than. Always read left to right. Okay, so now I have x equals 5 and x equals -3 because it was already factored for me. So -3 and 5, and it's concave up. So I think this is, most people got this far. Okay, but then I saw a lot of highlighting of these pieces. This is saying less than or equal to 0. Where is it less than or equal to 0 would be in between here. Okay, so now I need to describe that interval where this happens. Where is it underneath? It's underneath from -3 to 5. And I want to include -3 and 5. I saw a lot of parentheses when I walked around. Should be brackets because it says less than or equal to 0. Okay, so write yourself a little note. This equal sign is why it's a bracket. Less than or equal to 0. So you have to include the 5 and the -3 because that's where it's equal to 0. Questions? Just take some practice. There's kind of a lot towards the end of these problems of evaluating these things. Okay. I'm going to give you the rest of class to work through the practice that I'm going to hand out to you. If you get finished and you're not done with your cognitive tutor, that would be the next thing that I would do. Okay? And then if you've done all of that and you need help with factoring or solving or anything in this chapter up to this point, that's where we need to go next, okay? And if you would like your review that we're going to work on tomorrow early, if you're done with the homework for today and the cognitive tutor, you may have your review early so that you can ask questions today. We only have